Two will enter. One will win. Welcome to the fight. Welcome to the knockout.
Welcome everyone to episode 10 of the Knockout. We got another exciting matchup coming up. We have the return of Darth Vader from another season. He unfortunately got paired up against Superman in his previous season, and well, let's just say that he didn't. I forget. I don't think Darth Vader won, but or maybe he did, but he didn't make it past he didn't make it too far in the season. But this is Darth Vader's second chance to get revenge of the Sith. But he's going off against Ra's al Ghul, a very well-known Batman villain. So I cannot wait to see how this ends up. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a shakeup. The comic book poser who was going to argue for Ra's al Ghul is dealing with a sick kid, unfortunately, and so wife's not there, and so he can't make it. But I will be taking up in his place. There will be no sudden death vote link this time that I do. So, but we have our other guest who did make it. The guy, how does Rob like to say it? The guy from the Great White North, Chris, the comic vet. How's it going?
Good, my man. How are you, Matt?
Good. I'm glad that you made it. I'm excited to have you showing up here.
Pleasure to be here.
Yep, I see you all the time on Only Slabs, and got to be on the show twice here.
Yes. That's good.
Yep. So, but I was going to ask both you guys a question, but I'll continue to ask you. Who is your favorite superhero and villain in comics?
Ooh, well, my favorite superhero would have to be Spider-Man.
Ooh, that's good.
And my favorite villain in comics is Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah.
Well, and Kraven the Hunter, Joker, when he's written well, I have a lot of respect for him as well. And mostly Spider-Man's rogues gallery, but there are some villains here and there. And of course, there is the Chosen One, the man that was the boy that was a slave, that rose to be a master and then became a lord, and that's Darth Vader.
Well, maybe a lord and master. He's always second fiddle. Apparently, he claims to be all big and bad, but you don't have a master.
No, he was a master and then became a lord.
Ah, okay. I guess he got a promotion there, but yeah. I asked comic book poser, he likes Namor, the Punisher, Magneto, those kind of characters. So
yeah,
it's like well, those are pretty cool characters. I mean, the Punisher, I like to have the Punisher on here too. Unfortunately, if I have the Punisher on here, it needs to be part of a lesser powerful, less of a powerful season. Last season when it worked out when I had power.
An anti-hero knockout.
There we go. An anti-hero knockout.
Punisher, Wolverine, the list goes on and on. Lobo.
Yeah, because last season was Power of the Gods, and I don't care how accurate your shot is on the Punisher, you're not going to shoot Galactus down. No. But anyway, so it's just the two of us here. We got the voting link in the chat. Last I checked on it, you got a nice small lead, but we never know. You never know who's going to be in the chat and who will spam it. If Legion of Comics or someone else gets their votes in there, you never know, unfortunately. So anyway, so I'll kick off the show here, and then we'll kick it back off to you, and then we'll just get back to arguing. So, all right, here we go. So, all right, so Ra's al Ghul, my argument that, well, because it's the season of the villains and all that, and there's no really rules, that it's not just going to be Ra's alone. This is a guy who's lived for a very long time, who has powerful influence, the ability to, well, I won't dive too much into it, but, he's a hard man to kill for a very obvious reason. He has command of so many followers, and it's not going to be just him. Whereas Darth Vader, yes, he might have the Empire. Darth Vader might have these other things, but Darth Vader, when I've seen him in his element, I have not seen him with very many people around him. You usually see Darth Vader standing alone, because a man with that kind of power doesn't need anyone around him. So if you send a full force against Darth Vader, I see Darth Vader eventually becoming overwhelmed. There's only one true difference that I can really think about that separates the two of them, and that's honestly just the use of the Force. Otherwise, when it comes to swordsmanship, when it comes to intelligence, and his ability to infiltrate and everything like that, I see Ra's al Ghul coming out ahead every single time. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. So, Chris, what's your opening statement?
Okay, well, let's just talk for a second. Darth Vader travels with a troop. Every time you see Vader in action, there's stormtroopers around him. He does travel. He does travel with a garrison or a battalion, however you want to identify it. However, we're talking about the chosen one. This is a man. You say that he's not an expert swordsman. Come on. He doesn't need the Force to wield a lightsaber. On top of it all, he's one of the greatest pilots that have ever lived in Star Wars canon. That they talked about that, even when they reference his former identity. Now, Darth Vader is a leader of men. He handles battalions, like I mentioned, and on top of it all, he only reports to one person. And 9 times out of 10, he doesn't necessarily have to report to that one person. It's just more of a catch-up session. If you pay close attention to Darth Vader through the comics and the history of the comics, he's always being challenged. He's always being tested, whether it's from the Rebel Alliance or from even within or outside factions are always testing him, and they always fall. There's a reason why he was a master and is now a lord, because when he made the transition to where he became known as Darth Vader, he was dubbed Lord of the Sith, and he oversaw and ruled with an iron fist. This is a man that is known around this planet. Doesn't matter what culture you are, what faith you are, but when you see the helmet, when you see the robotic face, you know exactly who that is. This is a man, this is a character now, a villain that has transcended pulp culture, transcended face, transcended languages, who is recognized around the planet and has gone on now for almost 5 going on to 6 decades. It's an incredible thing. And it doesn't matter who's behind the mask, the actor or the person that's writing him. When Darth Vader walks out onto a screen, whether it's large or small, you pay attention. You pay attention.
Okay. Well, that was a very good statement. I will diving into it here. We end our main argument. I will say that I never claimed he wasn't a good swordsman, but I'm going to say that the guy who's been alive for 500-600 years might know how to handle a sword a little bit better. He's had just a few more years to perfect his technique. So, I mean, Darth Vader. Yeah, I mean, Darth Vader might be as powerful as Mace Windu, kind of a thing, but he still has not wielded the sword as much, and the fact that he has the chosen one, he's known he's the chosen one, supposedly had all this power. He might, Ra's actually earned more throughout the time. And like I said, he's had years to polish perfect, where Darth Vader is, well, wasn't it his arrogance part of his downfall?
I would say it's his love of his child that he didn't realize existed was his downfall. Whereas Darth Vader never fell to a 1%er with a bunch of cool toys, time and time again. Who was actually trained by him? So Darth Vader, in the end, was bested by Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm not going to sit here and say that the character or the villain is perfect. He's been tested by Obi-Wan and Kenobi at least 2 times that we can see, where they were young to middle-aged men, and then the final battle being in the New Hope. That's the only time you see Vader bested, whereas Ra's al Ghul continues to be bested, like I said, by a 1%er with a bunch of nice toys that he actually helped train.
That 1%er, I don't think anyone can hate. But questions or comments are welcome by anyone, just to help us both out, to ask, grill us and all that, your points and all that. But here's my question then, since I did voice the opinion here. You say he does. I mean, yeah, he's not going to travel purely alone. He does command his battalions and things like that. But at times, if he starts out with the battalion, I don't see, he does like on Hoth, for example. He doesn't necessarily stick with him. You see people dealing with the battle, and where he takes his small red guard with him, but I don't see that ultimately. You see always end up whining at the one-on-one. You see Sidious watching the background while Luke and him battled it out. Him and Obi-Wan fighting while everyone else stand behind him going, that's a pretty fight, and didn't do anything. But I see Ra's more. Well, Ra's won't hide behind. He's definitely not going to be the first one into the fight, leading the charge. Darth Vader, I don't see sitting behind drinking some coffee, and oh, is it my turn? Is it finally time for me to do something? And I see him leading the charge, so he's gonna have to deal with the battalion of the Legion of Assassins versus a bunch of guys in white helmets who couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat.
Well, here's the thing. So, coming from the military, what I see is that when Vader breaks away from a large battle and he takes his select group or select troop with him, he is the leader of men. To me, Ra's al Ghul is, I'm not going to sit here and call him a coward, but you don't see him necessarily at the front of any particular skirmish or at the front. I get he's an intellectual character, likes to stand back and pull strings, i.e. a puppet master. And the times when he's had to get his hands dirty, like I said, he usually falls. And that case seems to carry on to his children, whereas Darth Vader's children, again, are leaders and those that have been successful in what they want to do. But I like, time out for a second. I gotta admit, this pains me to talk about Ra's al Ghul like this because I do really enjoy the character of Ra's al Ghul. So, but with my Darth Vader hat back on, Darth Vader in the end, because he's such a cultural icon, that when Darth Vader is on the screen, whether it's large or small, it's just the presence is just respected so much that everything he does is always at the forefront. Yeah. Even though, if you think about it, hundreds of stormtroopers have preceded him before he has made any step forward. There's always a battle. He's not necessarily a frontline. I do expect that he is usually working with generals, as you saw in New Hope. He's questioning his general, and again in the Obi-Wan series, and also in the Garth Edwards Rogue One. You see him testing the high ranks of military all the time. So he's not one to necessarily stay back and puppet master, but he is one to push. Whether it's a director or a general, he is one to push to find out what's going on and make sure that plans and directions are led properly. And then he always gives that final warning: you don't want me to take over because you won't like what the results are. So that's a very cool thing I find about Darth Vader, that he was in his former life wasn't necessarily military. However, the Jedi did respect and operated in a military manner. But now when he became Imperial, there was that faction where he was, even though he wasn't ranked, but he was a military leader. And it's like I said, though, that's when he's on screen or makes that first step, people just pay attention.
Well, here's a question or a comment basically from Shop here. We mentioned, like, are they fighting on a planet with the Lazarus Pit or Invader is castle or neutral? That's the question here, because I was thinking about that the whole time you were talking. I'm hard to pick who actually is gonna start the fight, because I see both guys,
collaborating.
Roz is not going to just jump into the fight. He's going to know that this is a powerful person he has to deal with. He knows the Empire has resources that might be rival or surpass a legion. It's an Empire versus a group. So Roz might have his money in his own sense, but he's not a country or a planet or galactic planet empire to himself. Whereas there's not going to be in Vader's castle, because Vader's not going to just sit. I don't think Vader's going to sit there and wait, and Roz is not going to dive into the home ground of Vader. So it's hard to see who's going to go first. But to answer Shop here, if Vader just needs to make sure Roz doesn't have the high ground. If Vader comes to Roz, I'm pretty sure that's nothing but the high ground. Some mountain range and things like that. Plenty of high ground. But and Vader can crush a starship, in the Force. But whereas Roz has this Lazarus Pit, so if there's Pit nearby, he crushes them. He just comes back, and he's ready for round 2. Whereas Vader, you can't replace too many more parts without him being a robot, pure and simple. So he wants to come comic Poser. Welcome, Poser. Just stopping by real quick. No problem. I will argue the best I can. but I already have a hole to dig out of with the voting as it stands. So share that link to some of your DC friends and help yourself out. So, but welcome, Digger Jim.
Hey, Jim.
And just imagine I was going to say Lazarus Pit Lot. Well, I'm trying to argue that point myself. But back to these two characters, Roz and Vader both have, enhanced speed, stamina. They're both very intelligent people. I mean, Anakin or Vader, you don't build your own robot, you don't pilot a pod racer, and you don't command and raise to such power without, with being stupid. So these are both two incredibly intelligent people. But I see Ra's al Ghul is the more careful person, is the more diligent person. Vader is the more rash, because he, we see in his character, he does end up being the more rash person, with fighting against Count Dooku and other things like that. His impatience to try and save Padme a different way led to his downfall.
That was Anakin. That's not Darth Vader.
Well, it's still since he came back to himself, you can argue that's the same person inside, even if same characteristics, same mind, even if his influences is one way. It's whether you're arguing for that character, I would argue that, whereas Roz has more of the cunning mind and can plan out something in general. Now, he's lost when he got his hands dirty, yes, but he always lost to Batman. And tell me anyone who's managed to really defeat Batman, ultimately in the end, Batman always comes out ahead. So it's kind of hard to argue that against a person who never seems to lose or win against Batman. So you can't argue that 2 point.
I don't know. The Killing Joke says the Joker just basically gave himself up.
Well, that was part of the punchline. But
it's still, those are all valid points. I'm not going to sit here and poke holes in anything that you're saying.
Hey, Legion, send out your DC votes. I need your help.
But I'm not. Darth Vader is, like I said, he's a leader of men. Even his former self, he had trainees. He had Ahsoka, that probably the most famous one of them all. So it's not like Ra's al Ghul and Darth Vader have had similar stories that way, where they had trainees that in the end broke away and did their own thing. And however, Ahsoka never bested Vader, or has yet to best Vader outside of cartoons, whereas Ra's al Ghul time and time again gets defeated by a 1%er with toys. So again, like I get Ra's al Ghul is a master swordsman. I can say the same thing about Darth Vader. If we want to talk about seniority, we can talk about seniority. And get out of here. It's samurai, not Nazi. But again, Ra's al Ghul, hey, he can't get past someone that's not super powered, whereas Vader has dealt with Jedi, was responsible, had a big hand in Order 66, and then thereafterwards wiping out Jedi along the way, and dealing with other imperial threats since. And again, his presence is everything. The man walks out, and he's there. He doesn't need to lead he doesn't need to command from the shadows.
Yeah. Well, if you're so sure that Darth Vader is going to win, why don't you go vote for him?
Okay, I will.
Got Mrs. Comics over here rooting against me.
Always.
He's a cultural icon.
Yeah, well. All right, but
it's not like you're a Ghul person could kill you with just by looking at you. Darth Vader can.
Well, no one's dumb enough to poke a fight with dumb enough to pick a fight with Ra's al Ghul, whereas there was a whole thing called a rebellion against Vader.
Just to respond to what Legion of Comics said, hand in Order 66. It doesn't matter about age. I don't care about seniority. They were Jedi. They fell. End of story. I wish I could help you. Why can't Ra's al Ghul beat a man with some toys, a fancy little boomerang, a fancy big wheeled car? Why can't he defeat him that way? And he has a league of assassins, and none of them can defeat him either. What is up?
So Other than I won't touch on the Force because what back to your swordsmanship and all that.
Mm-hmm.
What other kind of skills does Darth Vader supposedly have or learned from Sidious? Because like I said, if it's just 1-on-1 and Vader doesn't decide to play dirty by choking someone out, I still think that the better swordsmanship is a guy who lived for 600 years. And there you go. And also, he said that Roz is a master of his emotions. Vader couldn't stop crying long enough to beat him in a sword fight. So
okay, if they're using their weapons of choice, Ra's al Ghul's sword will not survive the first counter. It's going to be cut in half. End of story. It's just like those that say, "Hey, Batman can beat Superman." No, it can't happen. We're talking about Superman, and this is similar of the same story.
Roz knew that he was going to fight up against him, so he got himself a Beskar sword.
We got the dark saber. Okay. but the thing is, both of these villains are going to use everything in their arsenal to defeat each other. So for me to put forth an argument saying that Darth Vader would not use the Force is something I can't say, because it would be the same thing as saying Ra's al Ghul would not do 3 months worth of studying before stepping into a ring with Darth Vader. It just doesn't happen. He's going to use his intellect to take on Darth Vader, whereas Darth Vader will do everything in his power to defeat his opponents, and that's what happens every time. Now, like I said, the only one that's ever bested him was Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it happened twice. Whereas with Ra's al Ghul, all the time. Every time he shows up. But hey, I get it. The bad guy always loses. The good guys always win. But if it's 1-on-1, there's just no way that Ra's al Ghul can defeat Darth Vader, because Darth Vader will never not use the Force, because that is installed in him. That's why he was the chosen one. That's why his midichlorian levels were off the charts. That's why he is who he is. That's why his children are who they are, and also considered the New Hopes, plural. So that's why it's unfair, because even if somehow it were to happen, it may not even get to the point where they cross swords, or I'm thinking of jousting. They would even get to that point. It would be Ra's or Vader just grabbing something that's close by and crushing him, or that way, or literally just picking him up and letting him fall. Who knows? But that part, when it's 1-on-1, it's not fair. It's like I said, the whole Batman versus Superman scenario plays into this. It just doesn't work, because Darth Vader would never not use the Force.
Yeah, if Vader kills Roz, he has Damon coming for him. Yeah. Whereas, because technically, if you're arguing the demon head versus Darth Vader, you only got one Lord Vader, whereas the demon head is immortal. There'll be another demon head to come after Vader. So,
but here's the thing: he can send whatever assassin he wants. Vader is literally in the middle of a military of millions. It's just not going to work. We're going to have to argue different points here to make them valid. You can say if Darth Vader beats Roz, well, when Darth Vader beats Roz, okay, then Talia steps up, or someone else. Fine. You have to find Vader. Again, a superior fighter pilot knows exactly what he's doing. Again, he's going to have to get around the Force abilities. And top it all off, if he's hanging out with his boss, oh no, you have another Sith you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Never mind the millions of stormtroopers they're going to have to try and weasel their way around. But facts are facts.
Yeah, scruffy nerf herder can sneak past the army of millions. All you need to do is pull out light speed 4 feet from the planet's surface, and you're good. But I will concede to the point that I don't see Vader not using the Force. I mean, A New Hope, it was just the sword fighting in the style of fencing. Return of the Jedi, he wasn't really doing that against his son, because he wanted his son to be a part of it.
There was some Force stuff where like Vader was moving stuff around. Like it was more prevalent than they didn't meet in New Hope, but Empire in Jedi, there was that. And then when you see Vader, aside from that, when you saw like the coming out party, when you saw him in Rogue One, God help anyone on that. Like, God help anyone on that ship, because he was a one-man wrecking crew. And it, and it's the same thing in the Obi-Wan miniseries. Walking through that village, seeking out Obi-Wan. He was a one-man wrecking crew. Even though the stormtroopers were there and everyone knew the Empire had landed, when he showed up, that's when everyone was truly afraid.
Yeah, it's definitely there. Just he is one man wrecking crew. He has the most planning and cunning. Has the mass planning and cunning of Ra's got bought. Yeah, I mentioned it a little bit, but I'm always welcome to your points. Because just his power. Yeah, because like I said, I see Vader using the Force a lot. All that. So like I said, but unless he's actually choking or actually holding him up in, frozen in position, like like just say for example, a Force Awakenings when
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren, there you go. Kylo Ren was frozen in place there. It's a little hard.
You mean Poe Dameron?
Yeah, and Poe. I mean, but I assume all Jedi or all Sith could hold someone frozen in place like that too. So unless he's actually physically doing that, the arrow, the agility and speed of Roz, I do see him dodging past flying obstacles and aware of his surroundings, because you don't become a master tactician and weapons expert and fighter and forget to check your own six. So you have to pay attention or you quickly get put in the ground. So, do you have any specific points that you want to bring up?
So I'm not going to sit here and say it would be a quick fight. I'm just saying if the two of them were to square off, there's just no point in saying, hey, what, Darth Vader doesn't have the Force. It just that's not something I think would be valid, because Vader would never not use the Force. Just like I said, Ra's al Ghul would not have his homework already done, or would not be prepared with a plan B, C, and even D. He's just that type of villain. He's just that type of mastermind. But again, just to reiterate what I said, we're talking about a villain that is a cultural icon that's now spanned or going into 5 decades, going into eventually 6 in the next couple of years. Someone that every time there's a new Star Wars property come up, the same question gets asked first. It's never, hey, is Boba Fett going to be in this? Hey, is Chewbacca going to be this? It's always, hey, is Darth Vader going to be in this? Because he is the one. When it comes to all top 10 or top 100 villain list, doesn't matter if it's IGN that's doing it or MSN or the Rolling Stone, Vader is always there. Whether it's number 1 or top 3 or top 5, Darth Vader is there. If you saw him as a child on the big screen for the first time, if his impact wasn't frightening enough, I'm sure the soundtrack of his breathing and the Imperial March was. They just the creator George Lucas behind it and the creative team that helped amplify Darth Vader hit a home run. Again, like I said, this is a character that's recognized around the planet. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter your creed or where you're living. If you show a picture of Darth Vader, they know who that is. Sadly, the same can't be said for Ra's al Ghul.
I don't know, that mustache and
that little tuft of side hair.
Yeah, that's just, but okay. How is Darth Vader, or how is Darth Vader, how powerful is Darth Vader going to be as he gets older, though, in a sense? If he didn't die and he continued to live on, and then he's going to get older, he's gonna eventually age out. The Force does. I mean, evidence of Obi-Wan and Yoda, they still kick ass, but but Yoda kicking ass in Clone Wars, I guarantee you, we have a Yoda 400 years younger. We see somebody a little more spry because he still summoned up his cane afterwards and was breathing hard. But so Darth Vader's gonna real quick. Darth Vader's gonna get old. So if Roz has his pit, he has his immortality or near immortality. He's gonna last another 150, 200 years easy. And so he can just identify Vader as a threat and say, I'm going to wait about 60 years and fight true respirator Darth Vader with his lightsaber / cane, you know.
That's an interesting question and some valid points. However, if you look at Darth Vader's master, Sidious, is someone that's considerably older than him and is just as powerful, if not more powerful from when Anakin became Darth Vader. In the end, Sidious, even after death, was a force to be reckoned with and showed up. So who's to say that Darth Vader would be weak in his ending times? We don't know, because in the end, he made the cultural shift back to save his son.
Mm-hmm.
Where that's the interesting part about Darth Vader, is that he was always, it appeared that there was always that inner turmoil. However, there is that age 20-ish to age 45, 50-ish, where he was that wrecking crew that where there didn't seem to be that source of problem, because Padme was gone and he wasn't aware that his children were still alive. So he was that wrecking crew, that the Iron Fist, so to say. But to say what would Darth Vader be like in the end, all you have to do is look at powerful Jedi that were of human type versus true alien type, like Yoda. So Yoda wouldn't be necessarily a fair comparison, but if you looked at other human type of Jedi and Sidious himself, you'll see that both were incredibly powerful in the end. And again, his midichlorian count was very, very high. And even if he was a Force ghost, maybe he could have been a Force ghost to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And who's to say Darth Vader couldn't make his way to a Lazarus pit and go for a little swim? And guess what? He's good for another 40 years too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you definitely have a point there, and I briefly forgot in the time until you mentioned it too. Going, oh yeah, that whole thing, the whole Sith science and Sith magic, and I still they didn't accurately explain that. I'm sure the books or things like that of Star Wars history might be able to explain that and what I was missing. But yeah, it's going like, man, Sidious is a cockroach, and if he's shared any of it with Vader per se, or Vader figured it out, then yeah, you got two guys who refuse to die. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely, this is a matter of, this almost might be a matter of, okay, give me Earth, I'll control it as the governor. And
so let's be honest though, if these two were to meet up, the odds of them actually having a direct conflict with each other, where it went to a hand-to-hand thing, would be rare. I think there would be a level of respect from either side, much like your wife holding your hand. I think the two of them may have been able to work something out, or Ra's al Ghul would have been able to try and charm his way into ownership of something that Darth Vader didn't really care for.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's I'm not going to sit here again and rain all over Ra's al Ghul, because it would pain me to. Because we did get to see him on the big screen. Liam Neeson did a decent job with the role. Ra's al Ghul was interestingly written by Christopher Nolan in Batman Begins, and that it was. But the one thing that they did well is show that Ra's al Ghul operates from the shadows very, very well, and doesn't necessarily have to get his hands dirty to try and manipulate things. Whereas Darth Vader, military mind, leader of a troop or a battalion, did choose to get his hands dirty.
Yeah, although maybe he wouldn't side with Vader, because Roz is always trying. The League exists to basically fight to punish evil and all like that. He might very well be joining maybe he might not join the rebellion, but he definitely would be his third party in a sense, because the Empire could be seen as the evil that can't be allowed to prosper. And if he had enough resources behind him, he could fight on that level. If he joined the rebellion. Yeah, it's one of those things that you could really argue, but I have no further really fresh points to add.
I was going to say, just remember what happened to that planet when the Death Star showed up.
Yeah. I remember I getting blown up by a single ship.
When the Death Star showed up, it was just
Yeah, I never.
Twice. It happened twice. But yeah.
But I guess they can't. I guess they can't build Death Stars like they used to. they don't really last. One shot and they're gone.
This is true. This is true.
Maybe they should have maybe you should have Mrs. Vader. Oh wait, never mind.
Too soon.
Too soon. A little bit. I guess if he feels well, we better get to our closing statements before Darth Vader burns up again. We'd hate to have that happen. So I'll closing statements and you can finish up with Darth Vader. So
sure.
All right. So as I mentioned before, we got a cunning, ambitious man with vast resources. He's Lazarus Pit. This is an enemy you just can't put down. He will always come back for more, and he only really loses against one person, Batman. And Darth Vader's no Batman. This Ra's al Ghul will find a way. He'll plan things out years or a decade or two later, since he has a pit. He's not going where. He has command of the Legion. He has extreme skill in weaponry and swordsmanship. I believe that can easily fight against Vader and eventually come out ahead. Yeah, this will not be a quick fight. This will be a thoroughly planned out, multiple round fight. But at the end of this fight, the judges are going to look at their cards and they're going to say, Vader, you are not the champion. The Force is not as strong with Vader as he thinks he is. After all, he can't even pick his side. He has to go back and forth. So anyway, vote for Ra's al Ghul. Otherwise, he might come for you. All right. What is your closing statement, Chris?
That was pretty good. And he didn't flip-flop. He went from one to the other, spent 30, 40 years, and for about an hour or 15, 20 minutes, he flipped over, and that was it. So let's not say Darth Vader is not an intellectual. Again, this is a man who had his ear to the ground when it came to all the military leaders that were in the Imperial forces, whether it was a general, whether it was a commander. He was always with his finger in the back of everyone's neck, wanting to know what was going on. Why wasn't things on time? And if something was out of sorts, he made the first step to deal with it every time. When plans got stolen, he was the one that had to step forward to deal with it. And Mark, you're a little too late. However, the Force will rule here. Like Ra's al Ghul, he's only been defeated by one person. And that was it. In the end, he stood up for what was right, and that was his children. So if you vote against Ra's al Ghul, you're literally voting against fatherhood. I'm just letting everyone know that right now. You don't want to be doing that. In the end, you love your children like Darth Vader did. But all in the end, what Darth Vader wanted to do was rule with his children. Ra's al Ghul sends Talia out to do some dirty work. That's not cool. I would never do that to my own children. Send them out to do my own dirty work. I can do that myself. But again, stepping aside from all of that, Darth Vader is a cultural icon. Whether you want to look at him from his former days, from 1 till 20, when he was a slave, that was a mastermind that created all kinds of robots and pod racers, and was a mechanic, till when he became a fighter pilot and a Jedi, and then a master, and then had a Padawan and trained the Padawan, till he got married, had children, and then went to the other side and did what he did, and then ruled with an iron fist and dealt with everything that way. And if a plan had to be changed, he changed the plan, and then he gave them the warning, you better hope that I don't change the plans again. Hello, Lando Calrissian. So Darth Vader, afraid of no one whatsoever, and stepped up to the plate every single time. I don't remember him hating sand. I remember him hating Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, he hates the sand. So that's all you do is, yeah, come to my throne room, Vader. I'll surrender. What's this? Sand everywhere. And you get that in the suit, he's gonna glitch out. All right, so get the votes in there, guys. I'll give it another minute or two before we'll see if I manage to do Poser any any justice or if Vader will be heading out into round 2 for the second time in his appearance on the Knockout. So while we're waiting for people to vote, I got one question for you.
Go Darth Vader!
Thank you.
You're not my question. Your favorite lightsaber fight in Star Wars?
Oh, that's easy. That Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul and Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, I mean,
yes, the Duel of the Fates, I believe, is the name of the battle from the first film. That was terrific.
Oh yeah.
And the other one that comes to mind is Rey and Kylo Ren in the throne room where taking on the Red Guard. That was very well done, very well choreographed.
I mean, yeah, the Duel of the Fates one is definitely great. I mean, I definitely like the prequel movies for their swordsmanship back when you were teaching that style. It's understandable that that style is not there in the later movies because there's no one around to really teach it yet.
Correct.
You have to build it up. So it's mainly guys swinging swords at each other. But my favorite fight is Obi-Wan and pre-armor Darth Vader on Mustafar. I think it was Mustafar, Vader's planet. And there's even a video I've seen on YouTube where somebody altered his light color lightsaber from blue to red, so it looks like he's wielding a Sith lightsaber. And I love watching that whole fight, just seeing these two swordsmen, with extreme skill going at it. I mean,
the training going into the choreography and the training that was terrific. And yes, the Dooku Yoda was terrific. And that was actually one of the times where we actually got to see Anakin do the first pose like that, where he would hold a lightsaber behind him, which made it, he made that pose his own. No one else struck that pose.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was all the ones since the original trilogy, you can tell that they've spent time with choreography, whereas they didn't necessarily give Mark Hamill and David Prost those type of choreography times to train. But yeah, Duel of the Fates and the Kylo and Rey after they took out, was it Snoke? When they after that, and the Red Guard charging on them, that was some terrific lightsaber battle.
Although I like the Yoda Sidious more than Yoda Dooku. I mean, Yoda
the chamber, that was.
Yeah, and Yoda was this bouncing little thing is going like a gremlin on crack. Anyway, we've had enough debating on who had the best shows. Let me see. Let me share the screen here, and we will see who wins the fight. So get the vote. Here we go. All right. Episode 10 of the Knockout, Darth Vader versus Ra's al Ghul. The winner is Darth Vader with 21 votes, Ra's al Ghul with 15. I could not come up ahead, but I knew once Legion showed up here, I had a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance.
Just a heads up, I did share it out before he did, so... But hey, that's a very strong showing by Ra's al Ghul. And that's, again, I can't stress this enough. It was difficult for me to go up against Ra's al Ghul because I have so much respect for the character and Neil Adams' take on Ra's al Ghul, which is, in my opinion, the best by far. Denny O'Neil at the helm of Ra's al Ghul was just terrific. That's the Ra's al Ghul that I like the best. And, it's... If this was flipped around, I would have had no problem representing Ra's al Ghul. But hey, in the end, the cultural icon is the one that won.
Yeah. Well, you move forward to round 2, but your next opponent will not be as forgiving. You're going up against Owlman.
No. Oh man, Legion of Comics going to be making it interesting again. Okay.
Yeah, funny enough, we talked about Batman a lot on this episode here. You're going up against the evil Batman.
Yeah.
So let's take Batman and
Wow.
give him Darth Vader's personality and send
I
him
hope
out.
Alan Moore doesn't find out about this. Okay.
Yeah, so Legion says, "Great job, guys. Looks like half the people that I shared who voted Vader. The point is always to get some numbers in the polls to spread the knockout." Yes, I appreciate it. So, yeah, there you go. Digger Jim here comments, "Oh crap, Owlman is no joke."
Yeah.
So hopefully he can do him justice. So that will be moving forward. You will be in episode 17 of the knockout in the second round. So unfortunately, you still have time. So for that to happen, next matchup will be episode 11, Brainiac versus Poison Ivy.
Oh,
so
that's great.
Yeah,
Brainiac and Poison. Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
talk
great.
about science versus Mother Nature. So this would be one of those. No, I love
Superman versus Batman. That's a good one.
My favorite thing on the knockout since I started doing it, I ever since season 2, I get the characters together, then I get the random wheel to organize things, and I get the best matchups to appear at random after the wheel. You know, sometimes you get, like I said, Kingpin versus Ultron, Joker versus Loki. You get these matchups where like some are just perfect. Like I couldn't plan a better show. And then just other ones, it's like, well, Galactus versus Venom. Well, if you argue this way, yes. If you argue any other way, nope. So it's just one of those things. And so this time, yeah, Darth Vader had the leg up, and I was relying a lot more on my DC friends to appear and make their voices.
They'll need it again.
Yes, since I'm a Marvel guy with Spider-Man, as evidence with you and Rob and all that, we were a bunch of Spider-Man lovers over here, and so it's hard for me to argue passionately for DC anymore. So, especially since they did my Superman dirty by not renewing his contract and all that stuff. I liked my guys. I liked Christian Bale and Henry Cavill as Batman and Superman. Those are my favorite characters for those roles. Anyway, we'll let you guys out of here so that way Chris can get on with his evening here on the East Coast or on the Eastern time zone, and I can get to making dinner. So my wife wants some spaghetti, and so apparently I'm the one who can cook it. So I'll see you guys next time on the Knockout. Stay tuned and happy collecting. All right, talk to you later, everyone.